Okay. Welcome everyone to Everything and Nothing. I hope you're having a good day, a good evening, a good whatever time and place you're at. I hope you're just enjoying it. And I'm excited to be here with you and sharing another conversation, but this time I invited a friend. So I was thinking it would be nice to talk about nature stuff. Like that'd be a nice conversation to have. So I was thinking, okay, let me see who would be the best person to talk about nature stuff. And I have quite a few friends, but I decided to go for Nathan. So Nathan, Rain, which one do you prefer? I'll let you introduce yourself, and then based on what you choose, that's what I'm going to call you the rest of the conversation. So welcome and tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, my spirit name is is Rain, or well, that's short for the entire thing. Uh, my parent given name is Nathan. I'm currently setting up a reciprocity run apothecary. That's a little bit of what I do. And for those that don't know, reciprocity is defined as the act of exchanging things or services for mutual benefit. So kind of like trading, but more in the sense of gift giving and support.
Nice, very nice. So it's kind of like the old ways, how it used
Yes.
to be. Yeah. Okay. So something tells me I'll just call you Rain, unless the other name comes up. We'll just go with the other one. But it seems like you're okay with both.
Yeah.
So tell us, Rain, what moved you, or what was it about? What came about that inspired you and moved you to get this going?
Oh gosh, for, even when I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to do good things. I knew I wanted to make big change, but I wasn't really sure what that was. Then I kind of steered away from my path a little bit, but also had a side series of learning at the same time. And around the time of COVID, that actually brought me back to it, where I felt a lot of fear and uncertainty within myself. I saw a lot of it around me, and I really wanted to find a way that I could give people hope and something that they could count on again. And myself and my family included for that. So that kind of drove me to learning about the food, the medicine, the water, everything else around us that was everywhere here. But the only shortage about it was the knowledge about it and really how we can interact with it in a good way, how we can care for it, we can love it, and how much we can really learn from the land.
I love it. And for those of you listening on Spotify, audio only, I invite you to check out the YouTube video because Rain is actually outside surrounded by sun and the blue skies and all the trees and the water. And every now and then he switches the camera so you can actually see it. And when you see it, you might even feel it just by listening to the audio. There's that flow that for me it almost feels like that joy. And as you were sharing that, it reminds me, I'm looking outside at my window and I have all these cedar trees all around. It just reminds me of, yeah, back in those days during, the lockdowns and such. I remember I used to go, I have a dog, so I have to walk him. And I used to go outside and walk him to my closest park. And I remember everything felt so still because there weren't that many people outside. But what was outside was all the living things, the trees, the flowers, the birds. And they were it was like for the first time, they were feeling free and safe to just be. There wasn't, the interruption or that, loud music or, people throwing garbage. Or I know it sounds horrible, but it's during those times I actually took time to go to the park and I would carry a trash bag and just clean up the park because I thought this is a great time to clean it up where it won't get dirty so quickly because there's no people coming out. So I could actually see the progress. But anyway, back to the point. The beauty of being outside and like the joy of that gratitude that I feel nature feels when we acknowledge it and when we are outside receiving what it has to give with intention, which is, I feel like, what you're intending to do with the reciprocity. It's not just like, oh yeah, here, I'll take that, here, I give you that. There's a bigger intention behind it. There's this exchange, this acknowledgement, because I feel like that's what happens, at least when I sit outside intentionally to be there. The tree, it almost feels like the wind feels different. The sun feels
Hmm.
different because it knows I'm receiving something. So I just wanted to share that for those of you that are listening. Feel free to watch the YouTube. We'll have the video there and you can see it too. Unless you're an audio person and you can already feel it just because you feel the vibes that go on. Um, good. So yeah, so it's one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this conversation. So as you know, this place is about everything and nothing because in my world we are everything and we are nothing. And there's room for any kind of conversation, all kinds of conversations. And when you were talking about, you know, what you were experiencing during that time, and you said there was fear that was moving through, and it made me curious, like, what was the biggest fear about, if you could remember?
I don't know if I could really limit that as one because there's so much different types of fears moving in around the time. But I really just felt like what I had counted on so much throughout my life, I was shown how seemingly fragile that could be. And that kind of shook the ground beneath me a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, if I can't count on that, what is there for me to count on?
Mm.
And it's ironic that we're having this conversation right here because I happen to be in Ottawa right now, which is a little bit chaos. And me and city energy don't normally leave me in the most peaceful state. But it was interesting to be able to have the environment really be able to bring me back to that and be able to bring me to that point of peace. So it it's kind of symbolic in that sense because that's exactly what I did back then is I went back to the land to try and find something I could count on and really was supported and guided within all of the different aspects and qualities of nature.
Yeah. And I love what you said, like, what can I really count on? And as you said, like, here you are on the land, sitting outside, taking it in, the warmth, the sun, the water. Like, it's almost like nature telling us, well, you can always count on me, and sometimes for me, at least, I don't know how it is for you. That's when I sometimes get a little like sad, not for a long time, just enough to acknowledge that nature's always outside, the
Mhm.
sun's always out, the moon always comes out, everything's always there for us. And how easily we neglect it sometimes. It's like any relationship, like when I think about relationships with people, even, it's the same thing. We get in a relationship, we want it so much, we want it so badly, and we even pray for it, and then we get in it, and then it starts becoming like, oh well, it's here now. And then we become, not always, but sometimes we start taking it for granted to the point that we start neglecting it, and then it becomes annoying because we get caught up in other things. We get caught up on, I don't know, work. We get caught up on trying to live a certain way, trying to, fit into the whole society, which nowadays I don't even think that's true because society it's kind of shifting. There's some people in society that are a certain way, and there's people in society that are a different way. So I don't even like to say like that's the way society is because it's not. Everything's like shifting. But if I go back to the relationship with nature, it reminds me of that, like being in a, because the reason I'm saying this is I know a lot of people that love being outside, and I know this because I work with people in the corporate world who, when we meet and I do the breathwork session to ground them, I tell them to envision sitting on the ground and smelling the trees and smelling the flowers and hearing the birds, and when they come back, they're like, oh, that was amazing, I miss it so much, I can't wait to go outside. And I also have met a lot of people that have left the city to move out into the country with the intention of, once I get there, I'm going to be out all the time, and I'm going to make time to be on walks, and I'm going to make time to look at the stars. And then they make it there. And the next thing you know, it's like they haven't been outside. They get caught up in the computer work and the phone and the having to go here and the having to go there. And before you know it, it's like forgotten again. And I'm seeing it right now as the importance of caring for that relationship, you know, that connection that we have with nature. So when I think about when you said, you know, what can I rely on? What's going to be there? I'm thinking, well, it's always there for us. The question is, how often are we willing to tend to it, to go out and appreciate it and love it, kind of like a relationship that we're in, whether it's with family, with our children, with our loved one, right? Like, are we willing to show up for it? I don't know. That's what came up for me. What's moving through you?
Well, I, for me, I was kind of thinking like, as you were illustrating that, it's this beautiful balance between chaos and harmony because we can't have all of one all at once. It's in this ebb and flow of each. And so it's that kind of chaos and then coming back to that harmony of working back with the land and to like really returning to that point of peace. Um, and then as for the relationship, it really does feel like, well, Mother Earth. It's that caring nurture that we're always here for you. Should you choose to give us a call late at night and you need us, like that kind of relationship. And the more and more you tend to it and you really sit with it and talk, communicate, and pour your heart out every once in a while. It really develops into a much further relationship than just kind of in passing that I feel like most of my life I I lived this relationship in passing. I just kind of walked on down the path without even really acknowledging anything. Or even just in my walk today, what would have just been me casually walking through the city, I wouldn't have acknowledged anything before. It's now like, oh, there's that medicine, there's this one. Oh, there's the waters, there's all the birds, and you really sit with it and you start to connect with each and every aspect of it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you, and I feel like sometimes it's easier said than done, right? Like, because I just want to acknowledge, you know, the people that struggle, the people that want to be outside and they can't, or they forget, or other things get in the way. And the reminder that, you know, like you said, there's got to be a balance. It's almost like when we don't have it, then we appreciate it more. And then when we have it, we could potentially go into the other end and ignore it. The invitation's always
Right.
there.
Uh,
So,
Something I was thinking about is just because people live so drastically different lifestyles, but we all have that desire to connect with nature or even to be able to heal. This was a lesson I learned through myself. So, was notorious for constantly drinking coffee. That was pretty much the only liquid I would drink throughout the day. And I acknowledged that was something that I needed to work on and that I didn't like. But I wasn't able to get to that point just yet. And so as I started working in on my own personal healing journey, I knew that there'd be different herbal allies that would be wanting to assist me. But teas weren't realistic for my lifestyle, just based off of the fact of I hadn't phased that or haven't healed that portion of my life yet. And so how I incorporated the herbal allies was through baths, through tea, or so through tinctures and other ways that worked with my lifestyle that got me healed to the point where I was able to get to those milestones I wanted to reach. So for all those individuals living those fast-paced lives, sitting fully immersed in nature for several hours may not be something that works for them based off of their lifestyle. But there's always those methods that nature is there for us that can work for your lifestyle, that can get to help you with that healing that gets you to those milestones that you want to be at.
true. I like it. It's like, well, that's the thing, right? Like nature doesn't force us to do something. It's just inviting us and waiting for when we're ready. And then we get to choose the pace in which we want to show up. If all we can take is 5 minutes outside, then we just do that. If little by little we end up taking, you know, 2 hours because I mean, I know in the winter, I'm not gonna lie, here in Canada in the winter, it's really hard for me to be outside for a long time, but I make an effort. I do have my dogs and I have to take them out. So I'm grateful for that in the mornings to come outside. It was easier when I lived in my other house. The other house had a river that ran through it, and I could go stand by the river, and the movement of the river was so inspiring that even if it was snowing or whatever, I would stand there. Here, I don't have a moving, flowing river. I have a marshy kind of thing back there, which is nice. However, this winter was kind of hard. But what I'm getting at is now the spring is coming, or it's kind of here. And on warm days, I struggle to be in the office working. So what I tend to do is I tend to sit outside. Even if I'm cold in the shade, I'll just take a blanket, but I just want to be outside. So what I'm getting at is like all the transitions that we make right through life and the patience that nature has for us to like it's just there. All we have to do is show up. Simple as that. So anything you want to say about that or add?
I was kind of thinking, as you're saying that, I was thinking about my little ones because uh, I've got a 3-year-old and then a 7-month-old who's just kind of starting to get to the point where they're putting a little bit of pressure on their legs. And it's just thinking that baby steps are still steps. And quite frankly, as a parent looking back at it, those are the ones that you get so excited. It's like, great, good for you. You took those steps. But I think we don't acknowledge all the other ones that we take. And as adults, we think we have to be good at something immediately without really celebrating those baby steps. We still made steps in the right direction. We still made progress. And we should really just jump on that celebration and keep that momentum to propel you forward.
Yeah, that's so true. Celebration and like actually celebrating, like for real, you know? Because that's another thing. Like as a coach, of course, and you know this, Rain. When we're working together, and then I tell people, okay, we're gonna do something. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna celebrate? And then I hold people accountable. And even yesterday, I finished the last section of the book, and I was so happy. And actually, it was beautiful how it happened because I wouldn't say I was feeling stuck. It just I wasn't receiving the flow that was coming through. And I wasn't pushing myself to like, oh, I have to do it now. I was more like, it'll come, it'll come, it'll come, it'll come. When, how, I don't know. I just know it'll come. So I went to this event. It was a tree, they're protecting some trees. And so I went there and there was river. So I went and I sat by the river and it all just came flowing like the river. It was just like, and afterwards, I was so happy because I finished it. Now it's done. It's ready to go out. And I reached out to one of my close friends right now and I said to her, hey, I finished the book. And her message to me was not like, congratulations. She literally replied with an audio and she was like, she was clapping. And it sounds silly, but when I listened to it, I was like, yeah, that's like, yes. It's something that to some people is like, well, duh, you're supposed to. But no, like it means a lot. Like every step, whether it's a baby step or a tiny step, big step, like to really celebrate it. And she asked me, what are you going to do to celebrate? And I was like, yeah, what am I going to do? And it can be simple things, like a dance. If you're in an accountability group, just sharing it with each other, like all these little emojis that you can send, like, woo, you can send a voice message. But like really celebrate them. And like you said, oftentimes we just don't. We celebrate them until we don't, until we almost feel like, okay, yeah, enough, or yeah, good for you. But like to really, really celebrate it, right? Anything you want to add to that?
Oh, I think my comment really came from acknowledging that within myself that I didn't do that often enough. I didn't give myself any credit for the great achievements or even the things that I learned along the way. And just as I got the our caring nature of the apothecary, I'm doing kind of off the ground a little bit. I finished the Facebook page and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm treating my family to go out for supper. That was my celebration, and it was just acknowledging what I did and just being grateful for that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So while we're talking about celebration and you touched a little bit on, it wasn't always like this because, those are the best stories. It wasn't always like this. There was a time in my life where I was struggling with something. So it makes me wonder, and it might make the people listening wonder. Um, because you said since you were little you wanted this, but when was the moment that you were like, I'm committed to this, I'm showing up to this? And was it easy? Was it like, okay, I'm committed, everything is flowing, or what was the journey like?
Oh God, it was a wild ride.
Thank you
If
for
I
saying that. Any of you that are listening thinking, why is this not easier? It's not just you, it's all of us. It's a wild, wild ride.
no, no, this somehow makes the roller coasters at Wonderland look easy. And I'm not saying that as a sort of craziness in my life. I think if we all take a moment and acknowledge what we've all done for every single one of our lives, that's true for every one of us. But for me, anyhow, if I kind of look back at my journey, I think this has been there the whole time. Me working with medicines kind of started when I was young. My favorite two shows were Blue's Clues and Martha Stewart Living. Uh, I worked with my mom in the kitchen and helped with cooking, and she would let me make all sorts of concoctions in the kitchen sink with whatever I could find in the cupboards. Thank goodness I didn't go underneath the kitchen sink for those. That would have been bad. Uh, but kind of grew from there a little bit. In my teenage years, I took a little bit of a rebellious turn, and I ended up meeting a plant teacher, cannabis, and through that relationship was taught oh so much. It's geez, for one, how powerful plants can be just in general, how much our intention and what we do and how we engage with it shifts the relationship and the experience altogether. Uh, I learned so many different ways of how to prepare the medicines, what each method can kind of do. Started learning about growing as legalization hit, and I started working within the recreational markets. And as I started pursuing my passion within cannabis, I just saw so much medicinal value within that plant. And so became a firm advocate for it and just decided to learn as much as I possibly could. That later on, as we started approaching more towards 2020, shifted towards a view of, okay, well, if that's what this plant can do, what's to say any other plant can't be just as powerful? And that was like a whole can of worms, and got so excited at the numerous possibilities that were literally everywhere now. And kind of did a little bit of research here and there in terms of foraging, just different natural medicines. And as I got more involved in that, I hit a hard and fast spiritual awakening, which before I I was convinced there was nothing. There was no further connection. There was no higher power or whatever term you want to use. Uh, I was just convinced there wasn't anything. And then, well, the universe has a way of showing you if it wants you to hear. And I was forced to listen, and not in a bad way. It was more just I I have to listen to what you have to say, and it was for my benefit. I got to learn so much about everything around me, even myself and my relationship to everything around me. Then, kind of at that point in amongst there, it's like that parent with that gentle encouragement, like you really have to do it. I think I felt pressured in many ways. I felt pressured by my own internal pressure of like, oh, you have this, and this, that for some reason I'm not good enough. Or now I have all of this that I didn't know about everything around me that felt almost scared and intimidated by how little I knew.
Right.
And I think from that, I really put immense amounts of pressure on myself. But the more and more like you said, I just showed up. I just tried to sit with the land whenever I could, whether that be my 10-minute walks with the dog each day, which is how it started. I just walked the same trail every single day. And I would look at what changes were there, what plants showed up, try and identify the ones I could. I think there's still a good majority on that trail I still have yet to identify, but tried to learn whatever ones I could, and then look at the animals, sit with the water, and I went from that feeling for lack of a better way of putting it, like I was getting called out to I'm being shown and guided and taught. And it was just like this beautiful shift because the more and more I did that, I would start to look up the different things that I saw and the different meanings that they held. And as I would look that up and be like, oh, okay, you know what? This directly reflects my life right now. Interesting. And so I started to go back and look up some of the other things that happened in my life. Like around the time of 2020, me and my brother started getting into rock hounding, and that was kind of our way of connecting back with the land as well as just giving us a little bit of peace in that chaotic time. And I started looking up the properties of the crystals that I found, and I was like, oh, wow, cool. One, I didn't know that it did that, and two, the properties happened to correlate exactly with the changes that occurred in my life at the time, and I was just blown away at the synchronicities that started occurring. So it just turned into this beautiful connection of understanding and, like you said, a relationship.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing because, a lot of the times, like, we don't know people's journeys, right? We may make an assumption based on little tidbits that we hear, but like, no matter who I've talked to and, people that I collaborate with, we all share a similar story of bumpy spots on the way, you know, and not that you get to a point and it becomes like, oh, everything's now good. It's more like it becomes easier to ride those big waves. We become more prepared. It still is bumpy. It still is, uncomfortable. It just becomes more manageable. It's all about relationships really, because for me right there, it's like there's a relationship with myself that there's this stronger trust and stronger clarity that just makes it easier to continue to show up, like you said. Um, I think it's really beautiful how you share. It's almost like there was this relationship with these plants even before, and for me, this is a reminder that we all have different, I don't know if commitments is the right word, but almost like different agreements with different elements, with different parts of life at different times in our life for different reasons that will lead us to back to ourselves, back to our heart, back to home, right? To help us contribute. And going back to reciprocity, which is what this is about, to continue to show up and give, and that give and take, that give and receive. So thank you for sharing. Anything you want to add before I ask you another question?
Not that I can think of.
Cool.
Go ahead and ask away.
Okay, because my next question is about your vision. Because I'm
Okay.
excited about what you do, and I'm very grateful you have shared some of the medicines that you work with and that you make. And it's really nice to it's really nice to receive them. Like the way in which you give them, the way in which you like honor what you're actually giving to someone. It's not like, oh, here, I made something. It's almost like an act of gratitude and an exchange of something which might be linked to what you're talking about. But that's just my perception and my experience of it. So I'm going to open the space and invite you to share as much or as little as you want about this vision. What does it mean to you? And yeah, just whatever you want to share.
All right. This is going to be a loaded answer, especially because of the way that you mentioned the way that I give gifts. Um, so I do that with a lot of intention, actually. I in learning, I've started learning Algonquin, and I I've learned language and communication, and is a major thing within humanity or even nature as a whole. The Every single part of nature has its own given language that it communicates in. Even people that speak the same language have their own individual dialects, so their own way of saying it. So how many different ways we can communicate is very different, very important. And so For me, I try to acknowledge the love languages. Those are what I believe is a common language that we can all share. That if we put that first, we, no matter what, are able to communicate with the energies of love. So I put forth that as a heartfelt gift. So that way I open up the floor to a conversation with love. And that's how I try and do it, is by putting out one of those love languages, enabling that in my communication. As for my vision with our caring nature, or just what I'm trying to do in general, it started out from me wanting to find something for people to have hope in that they can count on, and progressed a little bit more into I wanted to be a bridge to be able to bring people the teachings of the medicines and the foods that were everywhere around us. Progressing a little bit further, I really wanted to help people connect to nature just as I had started to feel. And I just, it helped me in so much that I I wanted to be able to do that for others. And I ended up receiving many teachings along the way. And part of that was within gratitude. So what we give gratitude for, we acknowledge and bring to the forefront of our attention, but in a positive way. We acknowledge it, make it feel like a gift. And in order for us to make something seem real to us, we need to bring it into our attention, into our perception. And so gratitude is a great tool for bringing all these things into our perception and allowing us to view everything as gifts. For me, myself, I start to think of these gifts as things that we can share freely that doesn't really cost us anything. So, leaves on the ground. If these were medicine plants, those are like a gift at the end of in the fall that they just drop. And even the sticks on the ground, if once again, if those were medicine plants we know how to use, those are still gifted medicine. We don't have to just take it from the tree. It's given. And so everything in nature has this gift that it can share freely, but it doesn't really cost anything in order to give it to others. And then when the other in reciprocity shares their gift, we all mutually flourish from everything around us. And that's what I'm really trying to bring out, is this mutual flourishing, this growing and sharing of all of our gifts, and really becoming one as a community.
Beautiful. Yeah. I like the way you described it and how it feels, when it lands, like the acknowledgement of all the medicines that are around us. And, a lot, like I see and I read on social media, it's like you can read anything, right? Because people are sharing their thoughts and their feelings. But what I'm noticing is there's a lot of people that are wanting to do more natural medicines that I want to work with. They want to look for alternatives for whatever it is that they're experiencing. And, there's so much out there. I sometimes feel like it's almost overwhelming. There's so much information out there about what's available and what to do and what to get and how to work. And with the vision that you have, it's almost like you're happy to be the one that goes out there and does the research and connects with the medicines and brings them together and have them ready for people. And so that when they ask themselves, like, what can I rely on? Where can I go? You can say, well, you can come here. Here's some things. This is what this does. This is what this is. Am I on the right track here? At least that's what
Yeah,
I see when you
definitely.
speak. Yeah.
And I think for myself, I agree. It was very, very overwhelming when I started to get into it. But like anything, it's as simple or as complicated as we want to make it. Start small. Those baby steps. Pick one or two plants. Even a stone, if it's calling you, look up the different properties of it. See if you can learn different identification skills. Or even for myself, I've had several instances of walking and I see a plant, and just from seeing it, I know exactly what it is. I've never seen it, or I've never seen it another occasion or experienced a relationship with it before in this physical lifetime. But somehow a thought came in my mind and I knew what it was.
Mm.
And so the more you develop that relationship, the more you nurture it, the more this knowing just kind of comes and flows naturally. And it's like for some of these different like all these different places saying this one trait about the plant, but this place says something that counteracts that. This one says something that contradicts that too. And so it's a lot of confusing information. The beautiful thing about nature is these plants are there for a reason. And so you might see, let's say dandelions, for example. You might see them in a lawn and just commonly growing there. You might see them growing along the riverside. You might see them growing in the hills. Each different landscape had its own different unique properties to it, therefore changing what happens to that dandelion. So all these different places saying all these different things. It could be one, how they're using the medicine, or two, just the landscape to which that they picked it from, changing the properties of the medicine altogether. So it's a little bit of learning from the environment as well, not just the plant.
Mm. Yeah. See, there's so much. There's just so much. And I have to say, I'm grateful for people like you that hear it and that see it and are willing to just jump in and get to know it. It's a reminder, like I said, that we all have different agreements with different areas. That's the whole point of that reciprocity. We all show up with our gifts, and there's, an exchange of balance, right? Um, so I'm really curious about, like, what are some of the things, because I know you're out there on a mission and there's a vision that you have, and you shared about, this community of, the medicines and reciprocity. And so I'm really curious, like, how do you see this collaboration? Like, is it that if someone is curious about to learn, they can come and ask you? Is it that if somebody wants to, because I know a lot of people that do like little markets and they're looking for people to come and sell their products. But from what it sounds like, you're not selling these things. This is not about, here, give me this money. So I'm really curious, like, what are you open to, I guess, is what I want to know.
Oh, that is a great question that honestly I don't have a full answer to because I'm just kind of going with the flow here. I'm trying to just get this out there and just let it naturally progress into where it goes. For me, I want to try and just share my gifts, and how it's received or reciprocated is kind of up to the community. So for me, it's the knowledge of the medicines, how you can work with them and change them into all these different things that you can utilize. Uh, uh, sharing sharing these teachings and also really bringing people to that, or even gifting out all the medicines that I make. I am doing sound healing, so I would like to do like community sound baths that I could offer. But all of these events are all of these things that I'm gifting. The idea is to start slowly pulling people together, bringing out people's gifts, and start sharing freely amongst each other, and really start bringing out that community feeling where it's just like, okay, you know what? These are the people that I can rely on. These are the people I can fall back on. Rather than this, saying this from my own personal perspective, not saying this for anyone else, but this like I stand alone and it's like me against everybody feeling that I had so long throughout my life before I realized the support everywhere.
So if someone's listening to this and they're curious and they want to learn more about you, but they also are curious about, collaborating or something, is that something you're open to? And if so, how can people find you or reach out to you?
That'd be awesome. I'd love that. In terms of contact wise, through our Facebook page would be fantastic. And then that also shows really what we're about and gives a little bit of teachings on myself as well.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll add the link to your Facebook onto the description of this episode, and then I'll add it both on YouTube and on Spotify, and then people can just reach out to you and ask any questions that they want, and then just take it from there. Yeah. I'm really curious. Is there one plant that was like an easy one? Because you mentioned like dandelions and then you mentioned, cannabis. But I'm curious, is there one that if anyone was really interested to like, I would like to get to know one that can be helpful with many things, that it's easily accessible? Is there one that comes to mind or a couple that come to mind that you're like, yeah, it looks like this and go check it out?
Okay, let's see how much I can get out in the 6% phone battery I have. uh, for me, one of my biggest teachers was birch. It's taught me a lot about, well, what I had said about each landscape giving its own properties. It really taught me about that. The how plants are present together in nature. They show you which ones work together and which ones don't.
Mm.
So it really gave me a lot of teachings about how I can use medicine, what's in the land as well. And as for medicinal property that you can use, the bark itself, it is phenomenal for treating so much in relation to the skin. And if you turn it into a tea, boil it, and then you can use that in bath water. You can take the bark and turn it into salves. The list goes on and on. And I invite you to look into some yourself. And as for kind of going beyond that, I invite you to just take a walk, see which one really catches your eye, and no matter what, it just keeps seeming to appear. That one's probably talking to you.
Cool. So in other words, let them be the ones that call, listen to that energy pool, listen to that thing that says, look, pay attention to it and just be curious and get to know it. Start a
Exactly.
relationship with it, get to know it, be curious, keep showing up for it. And once you have it, tend it, right? And some of you that have done that and lost connection with them, remember that they're still there. They're just waiting for us to show up again. That's the whole point of our relationship. That's what I'm taking. What about you, Rain? Any last words before your battery dies?
I think I got a couple percent, so I'll say thank you so much, everyone, for your time, and have a fantastic day.
Beautiful. All right, then. So I'll see you around. Thank you so much. And yeah, from my side, I just want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for being here as always. And yeah, any questions you have, there's a link so you can reach out to Rain directly. Any questions for me, you know how to reach me. Thank you for listening, and feel free to share this one if there's anyone that you know that's going through a similar path or experiencing similar things and are curious about it. Share it with them. It's always nice when we share a message to remind people that we're not alone and that there are people out there willing to share their experiences and help us along the way. So with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rain. Enjoy the rest of your day out there in nature. And yeah, until next time.